By the way, we're officially on YouTube because so many of you say, I wish I would have heard this when I was younger. And the younger generation is living over there. So now, so are we. I am Nicole Khalil, and you're listening to the This Is Woman's Work podcast. We're together. We're redefining what it means, what it looks and feels like to be doing woman's work in the world today. And because we tell the truth around here, I want to open the show by saying that the vast majority of the women I've interacted with have a complicated relationship with food. It has become this loaded, high-stakes thing where we're juggling health, time, money, guilt, cravings, cultural expectations, and whatever the algorithm told us we should or shouldn't be eating this week. We crave food and we avoid it. We celebrate with it and punish ourselves with it. We label it, negotiate with it, and somehow we're always responsible for managing it for everyone else. We're not just thinking about our meals. We're feeling responsible for everyone's meals, our partners, kids, holidays, potlucks, the list goes on. And while we're out here redefining woman's work, most of us still feel like cooking falls squarely on our shoulders. The responsibility, sure, but also the pressure for it being healthy, delicious, inventive, impressive, all after a long day of work and life. And it's enough to break even the most high-functioning among us. And yes, we love caring for our people, but let's stop pretending that this endless cycle of deciding what to eat, buying the food, cooking the food, and then convincing tiny humans to eat the food isn't a mental and emotional gauntlet. By the time you factor in long work days, schedules that should qualify for hazard pay, late night emails, the never-ending to-do list, the sheer decision fatigue of daily life, the joy of cooking seems to evaporate. And don't even get me started on grocery bills or watching perfectly good produce die in your fridge because your intentions were noble, but your energy was not. And look, full disclosure, I do almost none of the cooking in our house. Jay claims that he loves it and that it relaxes him, and I do believe him, but I also know there are plenty of midweek nights when that is just not true. One of my goals for the new year is to have a couple of healthy grown-up lunch options prepped on Sundays so I can stop eating like a freaking toddler, cheese, carrot sticks, and yogurt during the week, right? So today we're talking about how to meal plan your way into 2026 without resentment, without perfectionism, and without feeling like you need to take out a small loan to feed your family. We're talking systems, sanity, simplicity, and actually, hopefully, enjoying the process again. And to help us do that, we have someone who has truly cracked the code on making healthy, budget-friendly, realistic cooking and making it not feel like a full-time job. Jenn Lueke is the recipe creator and food personality behind the wildly popular Jenn Eats Good, with more than 2 million followers across platforms and a Substack with over 130,000 subscribers, which ranks her number 7 in all food and drink Substacks. And her debut cookbook, Don't Think About Dinner, is out this week. And it's more than a cookbook. It's a full system for planning, shopping, prepping, and cooking smarter. So Jenn, welcome to the show. And I'd love for you to kick us off by asking you to share how you actually approach meal planning. Like before the cooking happens, what is the process you use and recommend for meal prepping?
Yeah. Hi, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to chat with you about all things meal planning and meal prepping. I guess to start, my meal planning system starts the week before. And that's kind of where this whole process that I talk about and Don't Think About Dinner starts on Fridays for me. And everybody's week is a little bit different. So I'm going to use this kind of basic week setup that I think most people would follow, but the days are not set. But for me, I recommend on a Friday taking 20 to 30 minutes to make your meal plan for the week. That time is really so key in this process of having a plan. And if you miss out on that, that kind of sets you back as you go each step. So setting aside that 20, 30 minutes, you can even probably squeeze it in 15 minutes if you're having a busy week, but putting it on your calendar, taking it as seriously as a work meeting or a family commitment, whatever else you have, is so key. So during that meal planning time on Fridays, that's when I do what I call my pantry, fridge, and freezer inventory. So I just take stock of everything that I have. Then I make my meal plan for the week with that inventory in mind, if I can, so that I can use up anything that's going to go bad. I can save money by using things that are in stock in my pantry, in my freezer, and I can pick out meals that I know I like or my family likes, whoever I'm cooking for, and that I'm going to be excited to cook for the week. So that's the time that I do the inventory, make the plan, and then make my grocery list. So by the time that 20 to 30-minute period is up on a Friday night, I'm ready to go into my Saturday or Sunday grocery shopping trip and not feeling like I'm in the parking lot of the grocery store and I have no idea what I'm going to be cooking, what I should buy, just kind of like go in with no plan. That's the number one thing to avoid because that's going to even give you decision fatigue when you get into the store. So I start with the planning session. I usually do my grocery trip on, let's say, a Sunday. And then once I get home from the grocery store, I like to put aside between even 30 minutes to 90 minutes of meal prepping. And it's again something that you want to schedule in and you want to be able to fit it in. It is going to pay you back later in the week if you're able to put that time aside. And I know everyone has competing factors, busy schedules, but that has really been such a success for me and my followers as they've started to follow these plans I put together. And because I have that time set aside when I make my meal plan on Friday, I'm thinking about my weeknight dinners. And that's always my focus because that's where I find the most people stress. And that's why I called the book Don't Think About Dinner. But I throw in 2 to 4 meal prep options, and that's part of the meal plan that I've put together for the week. Those are things that I look for in my inventory, put on my grocery list, and that's what I'm prepping during that 60, 90-minute meal prep time. That way, going into the week, I have my dinner plan for the week. I've prepped maybe 1 to 2 breakfast, 1 to 2 lunch options, maybe some stuff that I could put in the freezer, reheat later in the week or on the weekend or even later in the month is amazing if you can stock it up. And then that's where that whole process starts. So take your inventory, make your meal plan, get your grocery list together, do your shopping, and if you can, do a little bit of prep when you get home. And then your week of dinners, you know what you're making each night because you've made that plan the Friday before.
Yeah. Okay, so I can hear some people listening going, "Who has time for that?" And I just would imagine and reiterate that all you're doing is reorganizing your time. You're taking the time that you end up wasting midweek trying to think about what to get and scrounging and not having us need to swing by the grocery store or set up an Amazon Instacart or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
You're basically taking that future stressful time and bringing it earlier in the week so that you're more efficient and effective with the time you have. Is that a fair representation of what you're doing?
100%. And I like to be very realistic in my meal planning and my advice, my recipes, all of that. And I know for a lot of people, like I even think about my parents growing up. They were both working full time jobs, had 3 kids, very busy lifestyles, and meal planning was not a priority for us. And that's part of the reason why now meal planning, of course, has been such a big part of my life and now even my job. But the way I even got into this is because I was at a point where I needed to get control of my shopping schedule, my meal planning, and then even the food I was eating. Like I knew I needed to eat more nutritious plates. So I started the process as a result of kind of growing up feeling that stress every day and knowing I didn't want to do it. And I can very confidently say the amount of time that I spend making this plan, shopping, doing a little bit of prep, that is still less than the amount of time I was spending before I implemented this routine. But it is hard to really schedule it in, commit to it, make it work. So, something that's important to say is I don't think you have to do it all from day one, especially if somebody's listening to this and they're like, I am not doing any of this. And that's so many people. So, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But if you can just do one of those things, if you can spend 10 minutes on Friday and pick out 2 dinners that you're going to make for the week ahead. I don't think it has to be so regimented. I like to give people the tools to be as regimented as they want to be, but I don't think it's prescriptive and you have to do that. So being able to just take a little step, maybe you prep one thing on a Sunday. You marinate some chicken for what you're going to be making on for dinner on Monday night, and then you chop up your veggies and you put it in the fridge. Something really actionable and doable. And then you'll feel how good that feels. And I think you're going to be a lot more motivated to add on from there and then start to build up because it took me years to get to this point, and I really just try to break it down.
Yeah. That speaks to me. I'm sure there are some people out there who really want to have every meal prepped and planned and whatever, but I would, at least for me, and I'm imagining most of our listeners, it's even just having 3 meals prepared, thought through, shopped for, would make a really big difference because it feels really rigid to have every meal prepared. And like, I don't know about you, but if one thing went awry, I'd end up beating myself up as opposed to, you know what, we'll figure some things out, but at least I know 3 of our meals are going to be healthy, good, enjoyable, and my kids will eat them or whatever it might be.
Yeah, and that's such a win too. Like, that feels amazing, and I think that's a huge step for so many people, and even for me, this is my whole life, but I don't have every meal of every day planned out. For that reason, I wanna have flexibility, I wanna feel like I can switch things up last minute if I want to. Maybe I can throw something in the freezer that I plan for, and that's great, but it's the reason why in the book I have 12 weeks of meal plans, but the meal plans are not 7 days a week, 3 meals a day, because I don't think the majority of people want that. So I have 5 weeknight dinners as part of my meal plans, and then options to add on something like a breakfast meal prep or a lunch, but it really depends on your situation, what it looks like for you. Are you going into an office? Are you working from home? Do you have kids? It can really change depending on those factors. So flexibility is a huge part of the plans I make, the messaging in the book, and what I want people to walk away with when they feel empowered to start meal planning in some way.
Yeah. Okay, talk us through your pantry, fridge, freezer inventory process. I imagine that helps you create your grocery list, also helps you not overspend. But what are we doing here? Like, is it a checklist? How does that work?
Yeah. I love the pantry, fridge, freezer inventory session because I think this is another thing that feels really satisfying and makes the process enjoyable and gives you that motivation to keep doing it because you're right off the bat saving money and reducing food waste by doing this. And the reason is how many times have all of us had half a carton of Greek yogurt in the back of the fridge that we forgot about and then it goes bad. And one time, yeah, whatever. But over time, that's one, a lot of food waste, which I know all of us don't want to do, but probably more importantly, it's a lot of money that you're just kind of throwing in the trash when you get to the point where you've gone to the back to clean out the fridge, or, we've done it with bags of spinach or bell peppers or carrots, whatever that item is. And even things like meat, like you forgot that you bought chicken, you put it in the fridge, it kind of got pushed to the back, you find
Yeah.
it a week later and it's gone bad. So the inventory session is meant to get rid of all of those issues and keep yourself organized. I think an organized refrigerator, freezer, pantry is very key in reducing your stress and overwhelm when it comes to picking out your meals and cooking. Because if you can't access things, you don't know what's there, you can't reach it, it doesn't feel very doable and fun. So doing that inventory session can look different depending on what you like. I sometimes will just do like pen and paper on a list, but I think a really great way to do it is you have some kind of digital list, like in your notes app, even on your phone, or I love to use Notion to make lists and checklists. So I'll keep my pantry, fridge, and freezer inventory on a Notion page if I don't have it on a note on my phone. And another really helpful way to do this is I have like a little clear whiteboard that I guess not a whiteboard, but like a clear board
Yeah.
that I put on my refrigerator. And then I have a dry erase marker. And you can use that for your pantry, fridge, and freezer inventory as well, or just one part of it. So for me, I usually write on like every type of meat that I have frozen. And in the freezer, it gets like a little crowded in there and it's hard to see stuff. So I keep that list and then I check it off when I've used it. So like you can see on my fridge right now, I have a list of, like 2 pounds chicken breast, 1 pound ground beef, whatever all the things in the freezer are. So there are a lot of different ways to do it and you can experiment with it depending on the week. I'll do something a little bit different. And then one last tip for that inventory session is if you feel like you're tight on time and you don't want to do all of that, you can even snap a photo of your pantry or the inside of your fridge before you head to the grocery store. And that way, at least if you can't do this full process, but you've picked out a couple of meals, you're kind of running to the store and you need to make it quick. Then if you're at the store and you're like, wait, do we have Greek yogurt? If you snap a picture, hopefully you can see as much as possible in the photo and then you can check it. So that's a little hack I like to recommend.
Every January, women feel pressure to fix themselves, be smaller, be better, be disciplined. Why isn't more pleasure ever the goal? What if 2026 wasn't about shrinking your body, but expanding your pleasure? Because here's the truth: good sex doesn't just happen. Sex is a skill, and like any skill, it can be learned, practiced, and improved without shame, pressure, or awkward Googling. That's where Beducated comes in. They have 150 online courses on sex and intimacy designed for women who want more connection and, yes, more pleasure. You can start by taking their quiz, which gives you a personalized roadmap to sexual happiness, all in a safe, private space at your own pace. So this year, skip the bullshit resolutions. Click the link in show notes and kick off your pleasure journey by taking the quiz. Get your personalized roadmap to sexual happiness with Beducated.
AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
I had that dream again. My small business needs to hire, but I don't use LinkedIn and I hire wrong. So our orders get all backed up. We're drowning in paperwork, then actually drowning. Carol is fighting off sharks with a stapler and pirates are pillaging the office copier and... Then I wake up.
Don't let hiring nightmares ruin your dreams. LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant goes beyond the resume, using unique insights to deliver a smarter shortlist. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/quality. Start hiring today with LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell my husband this because it'll sound like nagging, but I might just have him listen to this episode because we have like 17 jars of salsa.
Yeah.
But then we'll be out of almond milk, which we use all the time. I'm not allowed to complain because he does all the grocery shopping. So God love him for doing it. And, a little system might help. Let's talk about some of the low lift ways to create some efficiency for ourselves. Again, not my area of expertise. I don't do a ton of cooking, but when I think of meal prep, the idea of doing 3 completely different gourmet, high-end, delicious, Instagram, Pinterest-worthy meals already stresses me out. So any tips for creating efficiency, low-lift ways to make this process simpler and go smoother?
Yeah. First, I'll say I want people to know that what food they're prepping and how it looks. Like, you don't need to worry about that. It doesn't need to be Instagrammable, Pinterest worthy. I do try to make my meals very beautiful by using a lot of fresh produce and pretty colors and all of that. But that is not the most important thing when it comes to making your food. So don't feel that pressure. Some tips to just make it a little bit more digestible, I guess. One that I love to recommend is doing something called a partial prep. And what that means is just kind of prepping half of a meal. So depending on what you're cooking, that could be a lot of different things. But I mentioned, you could get ahead by marinating your chicken and then putting it in the refrigerator. That's an example of a partial prep if you're going to be making, let's say, I love to do like a 1-pan chicken and rice. I have a couple of those in the cookbook. If you're doing that, but you don't want to prep the entire meal and spend the 30 or so minutes, actually cooking it, if you can just marinate your chicken, put it into a Ziploc bag, container, whatever you like to store it in, and then leave it there waiting for you when you get home from work the next night, that is huge. That's so helpful. If you have a few extra minutes, maybe if you have some onion and bell pepper going into that dish, could you chop that up and put it in a container too? And then really all you have to do is heat up your pan, kind of get everything sauteing, and then not think about it. So a partial prep is a really great way to make it easier. I also like to recommend ingredient prepping. And that means instead of making a full meal, especially if you're somebody that gets a little weirded out or just bored of meal prep, this one's really great for those people, then just do your components. So component prep or ingredient prep would mean you've made a sauce, you've made a grain like a quinoa or a rice, you've made a protein like some roasted tofu or chickpeas or salmon, whatever it is, maybe some roasted vegetables. And then you've packaged it up individually. You don't mix it all together, and then you put it in the fridge. So that way, throughout the week, or I do this for lunches a lot because I work from home and it's really easy. Then you can use your components and then put them together in the moment and just reheat them. that's really nice because it doesn't even need to be like you're having the same kind of bowl every night. Maybe you make it as a bowl, you make it as tacos, you make it as a breakfast wrap. Like there's so many different ways that you can change basic grains, proteins, vegetables, sauces. So that's one. And then I guess one other quick tip for making it a little bit easier is try to go for some no bake recipes. I have quite a few no bake recipes included in the book for this reason because I think it's super helpful. So like overnight oats chia pudding, one of my favorite types of breakfasts to prep because you can literally make them in 5 minutes. And if you put some protein in there and fiber, it's going to keep you really full throughout the day and you're not going to spend a lot of money on it. Or like a no-bake salad. I love like a great chopped salad. That's a good option. Something that you don't even need to turn the oven on for, just like put it all together. If you're having a super busy week, totally feel empowered to get some pre-chopped veggies or whatever you need and then toss it all together.
Yeah. Okay. All of that are great tips. The components actually really resonated with me. As I said in the beginning, this year, I'm really trying to do a better job of preparing on the weekend just some good, healthy options for lunch. So I don't, rely on a cheese stick or yogurt or whatever I happen to grab.
Yeah.
Um, but the flip side is I get bored.
Hmm.
And so having the different components, but putting them together in different ways is appealing to me.
Yeah, it's a huge hack, and even if you maybe make 2 sauces or even grab a sauce that you know that you like at the grocery store, that's a way to instantly change the meal without really changing anything, so that's
Mm.
another way to just get rid of that meal prep boredom or prep fatigue that I think so many of us experience, even me, so don't be afraid to make those little swaps, and it still can be prepped ahead and be very efficient.
This might fall in the same vein, but what would you tell people who are like, listen, my kids will only eat certain things, or my family really loves this meal, but like we get sick of it after a while? Any tips for picky eaters or like feeling like you're supposed to be changing it up all the time, even though we know that there are certain things our families just like?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Number 1 would be, I don't think it's a problem to have dishes that your family likes and that you make a lot. Like, I am the number 1 recipe repeater. I think doing that is great because it gives you kitchen confidence. Like you can nail this meal and you know your family's gonna like it. It's reliable. You know what ingredients you need. Maybe you can keep them on hand in that inventory and make it even easier for you. So find those recipes that work for you and your family and that maybe your picky eaters like, but can you adapt those a little bit over time to see what you can introduce to maybe you have kids that are picky eaters? Like I mentioned this one pan chicken and rice type recipe that I really like to make because you get a lot of volume and protein. You can put veggies in there. There are so many ways that you can customize a dish like that to feel like something new, but your family is familiar with it, or even you're familiar with shopping for it and cooking it. So maybe sometimes you make it with peppers and onions, like I mentioned, and taco seasoning. But what if, in a week you try that same kind of base recipe? You've got your rice, broth, chicken, whatever you have going in there, but then you swap the flavor to lemon and spinach. And you see if your family likes that. You don't have to actually come up with something new, but you can just change the flavors. And that's a great way to even cook seasonally too. So, like in the fall, I make it with butternut squash and shallots and kale, and it's delicious. But then in the winter, I'm throwing in like cruciferous vegetables, maybe broccoli and cauliflower, and lots of citrus. So you can make it seasonal and fun and feel like you're doing something new, but also know that you don't need to reinvent the wheel. I think a schedule works really well for a lot of families. So maybe Tuesday is your chicken and rice night, and
Yeah.
Wednesday is your sheet pan meal night, and Thursday is your taco night, whatever that is. Um, I think beyond that, if you have picky eaters and you want to try these new meals and especially make the meals healthy and nourishing, but you're struggling with it and it feels really overwhelming, some little hacks that are helpful is making a kind of like hidden veggie type meal. I have a bunch of these in the book as well, where you can roast vegetables and blend them up into a tomato sauce. And then you have a hidden veggie spaghetti. This is one of my favorite recipes in the book. And your kids might not really know, or like I love to make it for my husband. And you're getting a ton of veggies in there. And there are a lot of little hacks like that. I love to blend in like a cottage cheese. And I know that's so popular right now, but for good reason. It's a great way to add some hidden protein, make things creamy. And I have heard from my followers that their kids love those kinds of recipes. So just finding those little hacks that work. And then once you find, oh, my kids really like when I blend up vegetables because they don't notice, and maybe I can put a little cottage cheese. How could I, instead of using it as a pasta sauce, could I thin it out a little bit and then use it as like a drizzle on top of a sheet pan meal? So just kind of like getting creative and feeling empowered to be creative in the kitchen without feeling like you need to go for these crazy ingredients that are specialty out of reach, or you have to reinvent the wheel, try something you've never made before. I think a lot of people feel like they have to overcomplicate it because of a lot of the content and recipes that they're seeing out there. But I want people to know that that's not what you have to do.
Yeah. All great tips. I'm curious your thoughts on this. If your family has something they really like, I'll use my family as an example. We eat some version of taco salad every week. It's either taco salad, tacos, nachos, breakfast taco. Like we just regurgitate that one.
That's why you have all the salsas.
That's exactly, hence the 17 jars of salsa. You literally could never come to my house ever, and we wouldn't be able to feed you some version of a taco. But my thought was, because we know that to be true about our family, and it's a relatively simple thing, that's something I do know how to make. That is something that I cook. So more often than not, when Jay has an evening thing or when I'm cooking, we'll default to that. Some of these more simple meals, is that a good opportunity to bring in your kids or your spouses or partners? Because you know you'll always have it on hand. You know your family likes it. And then you can save your time, energy, and talent or joy if you have it for cooking to
Totally.
test out some different things. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I talk about in the book too how bringing in your community, whatever that is, your partner or your family and your kids is a great example of that, into even the meal planning and then especially the shopping and cooking process is a great way to make it easier, to make it more fun, to make it feel like a ritual, and to spread the responsibility. Like you said at the start of the show, I think this kind of responsibility a lot of the times falls on women in the family. And I think it's important to call that out and try to bring in the rest of the family and even ask them to help you out with the process. But bringing kids into the process is especially, I think, rewarding and fun because it's an activity where you get to actually involve your kids and give them a little bit of confidence in the
Yeah.
kitchen. I mean, that's how I got into cooking personally when I was younger. Is my parents let me be in the kitchen and try things out in a safe way. But that really gave me the confidence to try different things. So I think that's a really helpful family practice, or even like if it's you and one roommate or you and a partner, whatever it is, spreading that responsibility and making that, like, maybe you make your inventory session, meal planning session on Fridays paired with some kind of like, it's your kind of date night dinner, and you do your meal plan and then you have dinner after, or you go out and take the dogs on a walk or whatever it is. So bringing the kids in, and maybe even asking your kids or your roommates or your partner, whoever it is, asking them, what's something that you feel like, okay, we make these taco salads every week. Do you feel like you could take on this component of it this week? Or do you feel like we could switch it up a little? Like, do you have any ideas of what you might like in the salads or tacos that we haven't done before, and just like making it a little bit fun? Maybe you go to the
Hmm.
farmer's market and you see a produce item that you don't normally use, like you see a poblano pepper, and that could go really deliciously in your taco salad. So you pick that up and you try out a new way to like roast it in the oven with your family or whoever it is. So there's
Yeah.
so many opportunities to bring the joy back to meal planning and cooking. And I don't say that to be like, oh, just have fun with it and it's not this big responsibility, because it definitely is. But I do think as much as we can romanticize the process and make it fun for ourselves and the people around us, we all have to eat. That's one thing we all have to do. So
Right.
those little ways to make it a little bit more fun and creative are so, so important for the longevity of your meal planning, cooking lifestyle.
So many good things in there. I want to just acknowledge, the involving other people. We put pepitas often in. Shredded lettuce is our game changer for whatever reason, makes everything better, even though you don't really think about it very often, like with nachos or whatever. And those were all things that JJ came up with because of different experiences. And I think we think of food as a communal or community thing, but usually we think about it in the eating side of it. But there is the opportunity to create it communal thing, in the creation of it, in the thinking about it. And this is a personal opinion. I just think we cannot send our children to college and out into the real world, regardless of gender. I'm talking about girls and boys. They need to know how to freaking cook for themselves. It doesn't need to be gourmet, but like, for the love of God, let's not send any of our children out into the real world without knowing how to cook a piece of chicken.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think even beyond that, knowing how to assemble a plate, if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
if your kids are going off to college and they've really had no experience in the kitchen other than sitting down at the dinner table, it's an interesting thought of, what's going to happen when they go into the dining hall or whatever the meal plan looks like for them. They aren't going to feel as confident putting a nutritious plate together. And it sounds kind of silly, but it's actually very serious when you take a step back and think about it. And I even remember firsthand, like when I was in college, kind of seeing people around me and feeling like, yeah, we don't really know like how to create the best plate. So that's even helpful if they're not cooking, but just knowing, what do I like? Like, I grew up as a very picky eater because I didn't really try many different things, especially like fruits and vegetables and a lot of produce. So opening your horizons, and then by default opening the people in your household's horizons to different ingredients, with getting these like accessible common ingredients, and switching things up with spices and sauces and produce
Yeah.
really goes a long way in so many different levels.
1,000%. We have one rule in our household as it relates to food, and it's you have to try it. You don't have to like it, but you do have to try it. And it applies to all of us. Like, I wish I liked seafood, but I do not. All I taste is the bottom of the ocean. It doesn't matter how you cook it or whatever, but I will always try it.
Yeah.
And we've just reinforced that I really don't like it, but I will try it. For our listener, again, the cookbook is called Don't Think About Dinner. You can find Jenn on every platform at Jenn Eats Good. Jenn, thank you for being our guest today and for helping us take some of the chaos out and put some of the joy back into cooking. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on, Nicole. This was so fun.
My pleasure. All right, friend, let me close us out with a reminder that you are not failing if you didn't whip up something Pinterest worthy after a 12-hour day. You are not undisciplined because you don't feel inspired to cook on a random Tuesday. And you're definitely not alone if cooking a gourmet meal feels like one more thing on an already overflowing plate. Feeding yourself and whoever else lives under your roof shouldn't feel like a never-ending, soul-sucking, energy-draining activity. And while someone has to do it, how about we stop assuming that someone must automatically be you? Invite your kids to meal prep with you. Hand Jenn's cookbook to your husband or your partner. Coordinate who's covering what meals this week. Share the load. And as you head into the rest of this week and the rest of this year, remember, meal planning isn't about perfection. It's about reducing the number of tiny decisions that drain you. It's about designing a rhythm that honors your energy, your lifestyle, and your reality. Because women, belonging in the kitchen is an outdated definition, but feeding and fueling your energy, taking care of your body, creating opportunities for connection, nourishing yourself and the people you love, well, all of that is woman's work.